Welcome to the tutorial entitled Assessment Data Entry for Adult Education Students Affected by COVID-Related Program Closures. My name is Jeffrey Elmore, and I'm your host for this tutorial. To support your understanding of the presentation, please familiarize yourself with the following. Program Memo Octet 20-3, State Adult Education Memo 25-20, and 2020 Test Subject EFL Worksheet for COVID Assessment Reporting. Viewers may download the first two documents by clicking the hyperlinks. To download the third document, log into your Regional Adult Education SSWS account, click on the Plus Instructions menu item in the upper right-hand corner, then click the 2020 COVID Test Score link. A PDF version of the document should open up. If a document doesn't appear or you do not have access to a Regional Adult Education SSWS account, contact the state office and a copy will be forwarded to you. The guidance provided in the federal and state memos goes beyond adult education data collection and reporting. For the purpose of this tutorial, however, the focus will be on data collection and reporting, in particular, on entering data for students who are unable to take assessments because of COVID-related program closures. With respect to data collection and reporting, the federal and state guidance provides us with important takeaways. First, all eligible individuals receiving AFLA services, including IELCE services, are considered participants once they complete 12 hours of instruction. Second, if local and regional programs are unable to conduct in-person or approved virtual testing as a result of COVID-19, they may still be able to report non-assessment-based MSGs. In Virginia, there are 3 non-assessment-based MSGs: earning an adult high school diploma or a recognized high school equivalency, entry into post-secondary program in the same year as, but after exiting an adult education program, and for NEDP students making the transition from the diagnostic phase to the generalized assessment phase. Third, if a student is able to take a test in person or via an approved virtual testing process, a process developed by the test publisher, then a program may use the results to determine pre-post-test based MSGs. And fourth, as a way of tracking the impact of COVID-19 related restrictions on testing, states that experience or anticipate experiencing a decline in testing rates should implement a system that will allow them to identify students who are unable to test because of these restrictions. Because of the urgency to provide COVID-19 related guidance and the uncertainty of how long this disruption will last, our IT developers recommended a solution requiring as little change to the program code as possible. It was decided that 3 fundamental changes addressing the guidance were necessary. 1. Allow students without a valid assessment, primarily new students or students returning after an absence of more than 1 year, A, to be considered participants once they have reached 12 contact hours, B, to be assigned an EFL on NRS Tables 1 and 4 once they have become participants, and C, to be eligible to be recognized for an MSG other than for pre-post-test gain. 2. Allow students without a post-test in the 2019-2020 fiscal year, A, to be considered participants once they have reached 12 hours, and B, to be eligible to be recognized for an MSG other than for pre- and post-test gain. And third, allow the system to recognize which students were unable to take a pretest or unable to take a post-test as a result of COVID-19 program restrictions and allow state staff to report the data as part of its year-end reporting. To fulfill these objectives, the state office crafted a solution that amounts to tricking the system into recognizing a student as having taken an assessment, even though the student didn't actually take one. The solution involves 1. Development of a dedicated pretest for students unable to take a pretest called COVID-19. Understand, COVID-19 is not an actual test, but a dummy test that, once it is entered, will allow SSWS to recognize the student as a participant when he or she accrues 12 instructional hours. 2. Development of COVID versions of current state-approved assessments to allow students who have already been administered a test, either a pretest or a post-test, to be recognized for a post-test based on the student's previous test. Similar to COVID-19, the COVID versions of the state-approved assessments are not actual tests. Programs should enter information for the COVID version of the state-approved assessments once the student has reached the required number of hours for post-testing. As you can see from the list here, the COVID versions have the same name as the actual test, but with COVID in parentheses. So there is Best Plus 2.0 and the COVID version, Best Plus 2.0 COVID. And third, development of the capacity for the state to report the numbers of students unable to take either a pretest or a post-test because of restrictions on in-person testing. Some things to keep in mind about entering COVID pre- and post-test information. 1. Programs should use the COVID-19 test type only for entering pretest information for students unable to take a pretest. 2. Programs should use the COVID versions of state-approved tests for entering post-test information for students who have reached the minimum number of hours to post-test but are unable to because of program restrictions. Programs should not use the COVID-19 test type for entering post-test information. 3. Programs should not use COVID pretest or post-test information when entering the results of an approved assessment. For example, if a student was unable to take a post-test when he or she reached the minimum number of hours for post-testing, the program should enter the COVID version of the post-test on which he or she had pretested. If the student is later able to take an approved post-test, the program should remove the COVID post-test information from SSWS and enter the approved post-test information, including the date of the approved post-test. Programs should not use the date of the COVID post-test as the date of the approved post-test. Similarly, if a student wasn't able to take a pretest at the time of intake, the program should enter information using the COVID-19 test type. Later, if the student is able to take an approved pretest, the program should remove the COVID-19 pretest information from SSWS and enter the information for the approved pretest, including the date of the approved pretest. Programs should not use the date of the COVID-19 pretest as the date of the approved pretest. Now let's review how to enter information in SSWS for new students affected by COVID-19 related closures. 1. For the student's demographic information, programs should enter information from the student's 2019-2020 ASPD. 2. Prior to entering the student's test information, programs should complete the following. A. Identify staff to be certified on the COVID-19 test type and make sure the information is documented in SSWS. Programs may designate one staff person or several for COVID-19 certification. It's up to the program. Remember, the COVID-19 test certification is not an actual test certification because COVID-19 is not an actual test. However, the system will not allow COVID-19 test results to be saved unless programs can select a staff person certified to administer the assessment. B. Determine the student's EFL. Programs may use a non-NRS approved instrument for determining each student's EFL. C. Assign new student to his or her appropriate class and enter attendance. Programs may use the intake dates as the COVID-19 pre-test date. This slide is a screenshot of the test certification drop-down in SSWS. Here, you can see the COVID-19 test certification, which is what programs should select when completing the certification information for their staff. Resuming our review of the steps for entering assessment data. Number 1, for test type, programs should select COVID-19. 2, next, enter a pre-test date. As mentioned earlier, programs can assign the intake date to be the pre-test date. 3, for test subject, programs should select reading. It is the only subject available for the COVID-19 pretest. 4, because there is not a test form associated with the COVID-19 test type, programs can skip this item. 5, for the option to select pretest or post-test, programs should select pretest. 6, and for test form, programs can select either print or computer assisted. The information contained in the red box represents what the COVID-19 information looks like when entered in SSWS. In the next section, which deals with post-test waivers and accommodations, programs should leave these items alone. For staff with a current employment history and COVID-19 test certification, he or she will appear in the drop-down and programs should select that staff person. If there are multiple staff with the required test certification, programs should select one staff. For scale score, the program should select the test score that represents the student's placement level. A list of EFLs and their pre-test scores is provided here. So, if a student is determined to be at ESL level 1, enter a scale score of 10. If the student is determined to be at ESL level 2, enter a scale score of 20, and so forth, with ABE level 6 being the highest EFL with a scale score of 120. Remember, EFL determination is not necessarily linked to a student's program type. For example, a non-native speaker may be evaluated to be at ABE level 2. However, the program places the student in an advanced ELA program. In this case, the program would select 80 as the scale score, but on the demographic page, the program would select ELA as the program type. Here, you can see the staff person who was given the appropriate test certification earlier. Also, note the scale score of 110, which correlates to ABE level 5. Which you can see here on this slide. To see this in SSWS, click on the Educational Functioning Levels menu item. The red arrow identifies where you can find the menu item on the web page. Now that the student has a COVID-19 pretest entered in SSWS, he or she will be recognized as a participant after reaching 12 hours. As a participant, the student will be recognized for other MSGs achieved when the appropriate information has been entered. For example, if the student takes and passes all 4 parts of the GED, he or she will be credited with an MSG once the student reaches 12 hours and the test information is entered in SSWS. Here's a screenshot of the Student Performance Dashboard, or POP dashboard for short. To verify the participant status of the student and any MSGs that he or she earned, click on the Student Performance Dashboard menu item, which is highlighted by the red arrow. When it opens up, you will see a link to secondary credentials and EFL gains, which you must click to open. Once opened, you will see a table containing secondary credential gain information and a second table containing EFL gain information. Below the 2 tables is a third table called Periods of Participation, which contains the student's enrollment information. This table is separate from the 2 MSG tables and automatically opens when the Student Performance Dashboard menu item is selected. In the case of this particular student, he is credited with 2 MSGs. He earned a GED on April 3rd, 2020, and an entry into post-secondary program EFL gain on March 23rd, 2020, both of which occurred after he became a participant. Because information from the POP dashboard feeds directly into the NRS tables, you can be assured that if a student is identified as a participant on the POP dashboard, he or she is also recognized as a participant on the NRS tables. Now, let's review the steps for programs to enter information for current students affected by COVID-related closures. 1. Make sure that the student's demographic information for 2019-2020 is based on the student's 2019-2020 ASPD. 2. Prior to entering the student's test information, programs should complete the following. A. Document the student's previous test information because the COVID post-test information should be aligned in terms of test type, test level, and test subject to the previously administered test, whether it's a pre-test or a post-test. And B. Enter the attendance for the proposed post-test date. Programs should not make up a test date, but use an actual date of attendance for reporting the post-test. This slide is a screenshot of test information to be used to determine the COVID version of the post-test. The test information can be found by clicking the Test Scores menu item along the right side of the web page. For test type, programs should select the COVID version of the previous test. In our example, the student took a Best Plus 2.0 pretest. When the student reaches 60 hours, which is the minimum required for a post-test, the program should enter post-test information using the COVID version of Best Plus 2.0. If her pretest had more parameters, the program would have to make sure that those parameters are represented in the post-test. For example, if the student was pretested using TABE Class E, Level 2, Speaking, the program would make sure to select the COVID version of TABE Class E, Level 2, Speaking for the post-test. Programs should not enter a post-test using the COVID-19 test type. This test type is restricted for use as a pretest only. Enter a post-test date. Programs should use a date for which the student actually had attendance. For test subject, programs should select the same subject selected for the previous test. For test form, programs should leave this alone. A test form requirement was not included in the COVID versions of state-approved tests. For the option to select pre-test or post-test, programs should select post-test. And for test format, programs can select either print or computer-assisted. In the next section, leave the post-test waivers and accommodations items alone. For staff, select an appropriate staff person. The requirements are the same as always. A staff person must have a current employment history and a current test certification for the administered test type. Even though the staff selection is for a COVID-based post-test, the staff's person should be actually certified to administer the approved test type. In this case, the student took a Best Plus 2.0 pretest. If the student continues to receive services, when he or she reaches the required 60 hours for a post-test, the staff person selected for that post-test should be Best Plus 2.0 Certified Administrator. For scale score, the program should select a test score that falls within the acceptable range for the COVID Best Plus 2.0 test. The range of acceptable scores differs from assessment to assessment and by subject. However, each range represents the lowest EFL. This is to ensure that no participant can demonstrate a gain since, after all, the student never took an actual post-test. To see a list of acceptable score ranges for each assessment by subject, refer to the Fiscal Year 2019-2020 Test Subject EFL Worksheet for COVID Assessment Reporting. On this slide, you can see how the COVID versions of the state-approved tests are listed in SSWS when you click on the test type drop-down menu. The red arrow is pointing at the COVID version of Best Plus 2.0, which is the test type used in our example. The information contained in the red box represents what the COVID post-test information looks like when entered into SSWS. Notice the error message at the top. This is the result of a 488 entered as the scale score. The acceptable range for Best Plus 2.0 is 88 to 361. After the score of 488 was revised to 188, the system accepted the post-test information and added it to the student's test log. Notice that Best Plus 2.0 is the pretest, but that Best Plus 2.0 COVID is the post-test. Also note that the post-test result is linked to ESL Level 1, which is the lowest EFL. As mentioned previously, this is to ensure that students cannot demonstrate a gain with the COVID versions of each assessment. True or false? Programs may use the COVID-19 test type either as a pretest or as a post-test so that SSWS recognizes a student as having an assessment when in-person testing is unavailable. The answer is false. This is because the COVID-19 test type is configured to be used as a pre-test only. True or false? Being assigned a COVID-based post-test makes the student ineligible to take the actual post-test at a later date. The answer is false. The COVID-based assessments are meant to allow students to be recognized as participants when testing is unavailable. Once in-person testing or approved virtual testing is possible, programs should try to get the students to take actual post-tests. Programs should remember to remove the COVID-based test results from SSWS before entering the results of actual post-tests. Select the best response. Which of the following may not be reported in SSWS in 2019-2020? Best Literacy COVID, CASAS ABE COVID, CASAS ESL COVID, CASAS Goals COVID. The answer is B, CASAS ABE COVID. The COVID-based assessments reflect assessments approved for use in 2019-2020. Of the four, CASAS ABE is no longer valid. It expired at the end of 2018-2019. The Resource Center has provided access to its Blackboard site for folks to ask questions and discuss their responses to the discussion questions provided in this tutorial. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this tutorial.